In this lesson, we'll look at how we put an email link into an HTML page. To get started, let's look in the Project Files folder in Chapter 5 and bring up lesson_02_home in our HTML editor. Here on the Mac, that's TextEdit. If you're working on the PC, you would open this file in Notepad. On the Mac, I'll drag this file onto the TextEdit icon. On Windows, in Notepad, you would use File and Open. And here, I'm also going to open this same file in my web browser, which on the Mac here is Firefox, and could be Internet Explorer on the PC. And again, you would use File and Open on the PC to view this file from within Internet Explorer or Firefox on the PC. I'm going to tile these two windows together by reducing their width so that I can see a little bit of a before and after. Now, looking at this HTML page in my web browser, I might decide that I wish to provide an email link after the first sentence, the sentence that reads, "The Hubble Space Telescope has captured many truly remarkable images over the last 18 years. Perhaps I'd like another sentence after that sentence with an email link on it. If that is the case, I'll come back over to my HTML file and scroll down and find the corresponding sentence in my HTML code. After finding that sentence in the code, which I can see here inside a paragraph element, within that same paragraph element, I'll type another sentence along the lines of, "If you would like to share your thoughts on astronomy, send me an email at guest1@totaltraining.com. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to save my work, switch over to my web browser, and hit reload or refresh, and see if the sentence came into my HTML document correctly. It's a good idea to get into the habit of making small incremental changes and verifying that those changes work, because it makes it much easier to fix something that might be broken. Now, seeing that this sentence reads correctly, what I'd like to do is turn what is at this time plain text that reads guest1@totaltraining.com and turn that into an active email link. To do this, we'll use the same anchor element that we've used before to create hyperlinks to pages. However, we'll add a small syntax change. I'm going to position my cursor using my mouse or the arrow keys on your keyboard before the text around which I would like to create a link. In this case, we have an email address, guest1@totaltraining.com, and I'll create an opening anchor tag and close that anchor tag as soon as I create it so that I don't forget. And I'll come back over to the opening anchor tag, and I'm using the arrow keys on my keyboard to move around. And inside the opening anchor tag, I'll create an href attribute, and I will put that anchor tag on its own line so that it's easier to read, because as we know, space doesn't matter inside HTML. Empty white space is ignored by the web browser when the web page is downloaded and interpreted for display to the viewer. Inside this href attribute, we're going to enter a value that's a little different than any that we've entered so far. When we create an email link, we want to cause the viewer's computer to launch the default email tool on that machine and automatically populate the to field in a new email message with the email address that we specify. To do this, we use a slightly different syntax than what we've seen before when creating links. In this case, instead of typing HTTP and a web address, we're going to type mail to followed by a colon, and then the email address that you would like to assign to the text. Now, in this case, the text that I would like to assign an email address to happens to also be an email address. But it could be anything at all. It does not matter what the text is that's inside your element. It could simply read, "Send me an email," and you could put an email link on that text. But so that it makes a little bit more sense to the viewer, we're putting this text, the email address, into the copy of the page and making it an email link as well. So, having put in the first part of the value, mail2 followed by a colon, we'll type the address that we want to assign to this text, which, as we can see on the screen, reads guest1 at totaltraining.com. Now, from the File menu, I'll select File and Save, and switch back over to my web browser and hit Reload. Now I can see, instead of static text, the text guest1 at totaltraining.com has turned blue. And if I click on that, it will launch the default email tool on this machine. I'm not going to go and do that right now, but I can see that this email link is set correctly on the status bar at the bottom of Firefox. I know this because mail2 followed by a colon is the syntax we need to have on a link that will launch the default email tool on the viewer's machine and compose a new email message to the address that we specify. Now, since we're talking about linking, there is one other thing I want to show you. We've seen in our previous work how to establish links to other files, and we've seen how, from those files, to link back to the file which brought you there. However, in our work so far, all of the files that we've worked with have been on the same directory, or, in other words, been within the same folder. They've not been in different folders. Now, as you get going as a web designer, you will, in short order, very likely find yourself in a situation where you have dozens and dozens of HTML files, and you may not want to have all of those files in the same directory. And directory management is easy enough. Drag files into a folder. But how do we create links from one file to another file in a different folder? Let's take a look at how we do this. I'm going to move my web browser over for a moment and double-click on the Project Files folder. Inside the Chapter 5 folder, you'll see there's another folder called Other. Inside the Other folder, you'll see there's a file misc.htm, short for miscellaneous. I'm going to open that file in my web browser by clicking and dragging it onto the Firefox icon. Again, if you're on the PC, you can open the file using File and Open in your browser's menu structure. When I open this file, I can see that it's just a simple placeholder file, just so that we have a place to link to, and from that place link back to the file that we've been working on in this lesson. But the key thing is that that file is located in a different directory relative to the location of the lesson_02 file that we've been working on so far. So how do I link from lesson02_home.htm to a file in this directory named Other, the file named misc.htm? Well, I'll switch back over to my HTML page, and right now on this screen there's actually an HTML hint that hints at how we can accomplish this link. Notice that the banner graphic at the top of the page is in the Images directory. We're going to use the same approach to link down from the main root directory, which in this case is Chapter 5, to the Other folder and find Miscellaneous. So, in our HTML file, I'm going to add a quick piece of text around which I can assign a link. I'll add a couple of carriage returns after the email link that we created a moment ago, and add one or two breaks. And I'll save my file and switch back over to my HTML page in my web browser. I'll close down miscellaneous.htm because we're going to link to it. We don't need to see it in its own window. And I'll reload the page to see that the breaks have taken effect. And after those breaks, I'm going to type the text miscellaneous. And if I save my file again and reload, I can see that text comes into my file. Now what I would like to do is put a link on this word miscellaneous to that file in the Other directory. So, as we've seen before, we can create a link using an opening anchor tag, which I'll close as soon as I create it, so that I don't forget. And in the opening anchor tag, I'll type href, the attribute we need to establish a hypertext reference. The name of the file we want to link to is misc.htm, but that file is located in the Other directory. So, like with the images directory, from the current location, which is the Chapter 5 folder, I'm going to drill down into the other directory just by typing other and providing a / so that the browser will know where the directory name ends and the file name begins of the file that you want to link to. Now if I save my work from the File menu and select File and Save, and switch back over to my web browser and hit Reload, I can see that the word miscellaneous is now in active link. And if I click on that link, I can link to the miscellaneous file. Now, what we want to do is establish a link back to the lesson_02_home file from within the miscellaneous file. But if we were to do that, we have to do something we've not seen before. We've seen how to drill down in the directory structure when we create our HTML, both for images and now to web pages. But how do we drill up? If I want to establish a link from miscellaneous back to lesson_02_home, I have to tell the link, go up one directory and then locate this file. This is actually very easy. What I need to do first is get my HTML file open in my HTML editor, which in my case is TextEdit, and I'll drag this file onto the TextEdit icon, or on Windows use File and open this file from the other directory. And now I'm going to scroll down inside my miscellaneous file and find the text that I want to link on, which in this case is back to home. Let me tile these two windows side by side so it's a little easier to see. Now, if I want to establish a link on this text, we'll begin, as we've seen before, using an opening anchor tag, and I'll close that anchor tag as soon as I create it, and use an href attribute to create a hypertext reference. We know the name of the file we want to link to, and that name is lesson_02_home.htm. But to tell the browser, relative to the current location, which in this case is miscellaneous.htm, to link to another file in a directory higher than the current directory in our directory hierarchy, we need to use a .. before the file name in our href attribute. When I look at this href attribute, the web browser that's viewing this page, miscellaneous.htm, will interpret this syntax to mean, relative to the current page, move up one directory in the directory structure, and then locate the following file. You'll also notice on this miscellaneous file that I did the same thing for the image banner that you see across the top. This applies both to image references and links to other web pages. If we had multiple nested directories, if we had another directory inside the other directory, and we wanted to link back up 2 directory levels, you would add another .. This .. syntax is our way of telling the browser, relative from the current location, move up one level in the directory structure.